Hello everyone, it's good to see you back. A gifted conviction has slowly become my next top exotic to really enjoy using in endgame content. And while my previous one focused on the prismatic side of things, my current one's going to be focusing on the arc side of things this time round. It's quite truly an amazing build to operate with, knowing that you're going to become super tanky when the build is active, be able to trigger jolt and bolt shot more often, be able to spam CV effects 3 times back to back, and be pretty self-sufficient with keeping your abilities up and going. So here's a build that I know many people may enjoy just for its value on the field. Starting with exotic armor, gifted conviction, with exotic effect, the gift of certainty. It states, activating Ascension or Temper Strike throws bouncing explosives at nearby targets that jolts and damages them. Jolting nearby targets grants you damage resistance. The build is going to allow us to use our class ability and melee depending on what we have on hand. For this, I intend to make sure we are able to get enough energy going to support our class ability and melee charge as we play along. I have split how this will play out and also make sure that we have Gambler's Dodge on hand, as this will allow us to use our melee first, then class ability, and then melee again, for a grand total of 3 times. Once we do add in the ionic traces and weapons ability regen perks, we can spam this combo fairly easily and generally whenever we like. Our second exotic is Bastion, with this exotic effect, Saint's Fist and Breakthrough, which states, rapidly fires 3 spreads of pure force. After a successful melee hit, this weapon gains increased damage, reduced charge time, and improved reload speed for a short duration. Hitting a target with the most of the pellets in a burst increases the melee damage for a short duration. This weapon's fire staggering projectiles, strong against unstoppable champions. Because of the flexibility of the build, we do not have a specific exotic in hand to make the build even better. I mean, really do not need anything special. With this being the case, it's going to allow us to use whatever weapon we like, as it won't affect the core setup of the build. This is where having Bastion is ideal, as it's pretty strong now with the buffs it's received, so it can deal with unstoppables, and also be pretty most powerful against most enemies in game. At the same time, it can also work with parkour deconstruction, and this exotic effect does work hand in hand with triggering our melee, which will be doing a lot. It's not intentionally needed for the build, but these 4 advantages alone make it worth the hassle. For aspects and fragments, we then have the following. Ascension, where while airborne, consume a class ability energy to summon your arc staff, propelling yourself upwards and creating a burst of energy around you that amplifies allies and jolt targets. Temper Strike, where while sliding, activate your charge melee ability to unleash a devastating uppercut attack that travels along the ground in front of you, damaging and jolting targets it hits. Spark of Discharge, where your arc weapon final blows have a chance to create ionic traces. Spark of Resistance, where while being surrounded by combatants, increase your damage reduction for incoming attacks. Spark of Focus, where after sprinting a short time, your class ability regenerates. A Spark of Ions, where defeating a jolted target creates ionic traces. A Spark of Frequency, where melee hits increase your weapon stability and reload speed for a few seconds. While amplified, the effects are increased and you gain increased bolt charges from all sources. The setup provided is not only going to give you enough damage reduction to survive most lethal hits and hardcore encounters, but the flexibility to build, being able to use your melee and class ability often, is going to be enough for you to spam it at least 3 times before needing to reload. The build is pretty self-sufficient when it comes to garnering ability energy back fast, like shown in the stats and the weapons being used, without needing to spread its effects too far. Our class ability, for example, will see a lot of usage through gifted conviction effects, and will be supported not just from our mods and weapons, but primarily from the Sparks of Focus, Ions, and Ionic Traces. These 3 are easy to proc, and you're guaranteed to get your class ability up after a few minutes at best. Spark of Discharge and Focus both have their area of support, where Discharge will grant us traces and bolt charges, while Protection is going to stack with our Resilience and Gifted Conviction DR effect upon being triggered. The only fragment that is part of the build that does have room to move about is the Spark of Frequency, depending on how often you want bolt charges active. Considering that we have Dielectric, Flashover and Defibrillating Blast that all provide bolt charges, this can be negated for Spark of Shock if you want your grenades to jolt more, or Spark of Amplitude for creating more orbs of power. In fact, Spark of Amplitude seems to be the best choice to pick, as will always be amplified to trigger it, and thus create an infinite well of orbs for us and allies. Yet, this is a choice to look into, of course. For the mods and stats, we have Resilience and Discipline marked with the highest priorities for the build, with Strength also playing a part with the high usage of our exotic armor, but it will also be supported through other means. Resilience with Arthur at tier 10 for a 30% damage reduction. The build is going to be pretty tanky with thanks to Gifted Conviction exotic effect of giving us a ×1 to ×4 damage reduction via its jolt effect. We also have Spark of Resistance included for the build, and an Elemental Resistance mod as well, which all adds up once we fully engage with enemies. This here will allow you to play aggressive with our exotic without fear of being obliterated in a moment. A Discipline with Arthur at tier 10 for a 1 minute 1 second cooldown via Storm Grenades. Grenades won't impact the build too much as it's going to be used for ad clearing at best. Because the build is focusing more on class ability and strength as the main stats, grenade types can be pretty much whatever you like, as you will not be limited here. Just remember to have mods on hand that will greatly benefit from grenades being used, like Bastion detonation and momentum transfer. With the stats breakdown covered, we will now look at the mods being used, from armor helmet all the way to class bond. Harmonic Siphon for creating auto power via magic elemental weapons. Ashes to Assets, where getting a grenade kill grants super energy. Heavy Ammo Finder, reserves and scavenging mods for a heavy weapon. Impact Induction ×1 for a 12% grenade ability regen. Bolstering Detonation ×1 for a 12% class ability regen. Momentum Transfer ×1 for a 12% melee ability regen. A Charged Up for a +1 armor charge. Absolution for a 5% all ability cooldown. Arc Surge for a 10% arc weapon buff. Distribution for a 4% all ability cooldown. And Outreach for a 12% melee ability regen as well. So as we cover the exotic secondary weapon, I would then advise you to pick some super weapons for the build as well. What I recommend are all optional, so please keep this in mind. Our primary is the Courageon with Pugilis and Volt Shot. The following combo is going to be working hand in hand with my abilities and making sure I'm getting the full package out of the kit. A Pugilis will of course be the main perk to have, as it will allow Gifted Conviction's effect to be more prominent, while Volt Shot pairs well with Spark of Ions and creating plenty of ion traces on hand. Do be aware that the pulse won't be for everyone's fancy because of its frame type, so unless you get used to the fire design, you may want to pick a different weapon instead that has similar perks. For heavy, we have the Watchful Eye with Wellspring and Jolted Feedback, a ideal weapon that will grant you a good amount of damage and flexibility in terms of recovering what the build generally needs. We do have the requirements built in to support our abilities already, but having something like Wellspring on hand can help us out when the situation is dire. Jolted Feedback is of course class to have and generally works well for the build or activity you have in mind. Good weapon overall that performs exceptionally well. So while we did do a Gifted Conviction build through the prismatic variation, the following is what I would consider to be a more superior version of said build, only if you desire a more consistent feel of the exotic in hand. It's not that odd that something like this can be better than a version that offers multiple sources of energy all in one, but the Arc subclass variation feels like the exotic not only covers more ground better, but has a more smoother flow to it. Whether you are using Ascension or Temper Strike, either one will trigger our exotic armor effect with ease, and can provide a great source of ion traces, bolt charges, and jolt once you pop off with it. Most importantly, the build allows you to pop off your effect at least 3 times back to back, as long as enemies are around to do so, which if you include the weapon that generates ability energy or melee energy back to you, can allow an infinite usage of the effect time after time again. Personally, this feels really amazing when you do successfully pull it off correctly, as its range and damage is wide enough to encapsulate a large group of enemies in one full go. You also get damage reduction as well, which makes the build feel totally at home when you want to play aggressive or push up as a team. However, I can see the appeal of Transcendence being better for most, as it offers more unique combinations to pull off that offers a larger degree of play, such as going invisible or getting an extra grenade on hand. Depending on what you're after, both builds play in their field fairly well and can carry you and your team in most content pretty successfully. If you're after a smooth but destructive playstyle that you can easily put on and go to town with, then the Arc subclass variation like shown is probably the best pick you want to pick. If you want something that rewards ease of use and better combinations of buffs once active, then the prismatic version is better overall. Overall, the exotic is pretty damn good, and you don't even need seasonal mods to make it even better. So there we have it. I hope you all enjoyed the build breakdown. If you have any thoughts on the content shared, then please leave a comment. Or if you enjoy the content and want more of these videos, then leave a like and a sub while you're here. A dim link for the build is located below in the pin section, and I do advise you to check out my playlist for more. It was great sharing today's video with you all, and I hope to see you again soon.